But thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Our typically our fearless third Thursday leader, Miss Lindsay, just got married. So congratulations to Lindsay. And so she is on a well-deserved break after her wedding. So we are taking over for her for the next couple weeks. And as you know, you are here for our Planning for Year-End Success third Thursday. So just wanted to share from the Community Foundation a couple things that are coming up. So our next third Thursday is going to be in September, focused on board engagement. And we've had a lot of questions from nonprofits about how to recruit board members, how to engage board members well. So we hope that this will be the first of potentially many different sessions we have around board engagement. We're still working on the format and speakers, but keep an eye out for that. And then just several of you on the call applied to us for grants. So we just wanted to remind you again, thank you for doing that we are in the process of reviewing them. And so you will not see your application in our system while they're under review, but don't worry, it's there. And we'll be sharing decisions with you in late October or early November. So, and then just a couple housekeeping items as we start this morning. Of course, we are recording our session today. We have captions on for those who might be hard of hearing. So you can choose to turn those off, but we'll have those on and put those in our recording. You can ask questions today at any time during the session. Just interrupt Josh or Bill. If you'd rather, you can put your questions into the chat and I'll keep an eye on that for you. And we'll just make sure we have the opportunity for some good discussion as we hear what Josh and Bill are sharing with us. So with that, I will turn the program over to Josh and Bill. You can share your screen and then just let me know if you all have questions throughout.
Thank you, Jessica. It's good to be with you guys again. It's been a few years. Let me introduce Josh first. He's going to do the heavy lifting on this presentation. You will find out very shortly that he is the brains at Wordsprint. And as you all know, I'm just the pretty face. So let me give you some background on Josh. He's been with us pushing, what, 3 years now, Josh, I guess? And his,
I think so.
His background is in donor relations. His background is in major gifts. His background is in appeal mailings. So he knows a lot, and I think we'll have some really good information for you. So let's jump in here. Those of you that have heard us talk before about donor relations and about appeals, you know that our big mantra is it's all about the right message to the right people with the right rhythm. And so this presentation is going to take a slightly different tack on that, but it's all still within that framework of the right message to the right people with the right rhythm. The four things we really want to talk about today are the rhythm aspect, segmentation, personalization, and omni-channel. These are all under a umbrella of what is actually working for not just fundraising and donor relations, but in marketing today. These are kind of the things that you really need to have your fingers on: rhythm, segmentation, and personalization. So Josh, let's move on to the next one. Rhythm is, as you know, consistent pattern of repetition. What you don't want to do is to try one thing one year and the next year try something else, and the next year change your timing. You know, in your heart of hearts, the rhythm that your donors, that your supporters want, how often they want to hear from you. And once you establish that cadence, that rhythm, stick with it. Our studies have shown it takes about 3 years from startup before it really starts bearing fruit. But being consistent with rhythm is very important. It's so important that if you check down to the bottom here, we have a saying that you adjust the scale of your appeal to fit your budget so that you can sustain the rhythm. It really is better to market to a much smaller number, say 500 people, rhythmically than 5,000 in a blast. We have found that when it comes to donor relations, blasts generally don't work for sustained sustained support. Rhythm builds trust. When you touch consistently, that will build trust, and your donors will expect that. And this applies to whether you're doing this by email, by telephone calls, by visits, by direct mail, every channel. Rhythm is very important. What do we got next here, Josh?
Has it not loaded all the way through? Sorry, on my screen I see all of them.
No, yeah, I'm still on the rhythm.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
Me technologically challenged here. Segmentation. Is that what you see?
There we go. Yeah, seeing that now. Just go ahead and populate that.
Okay.
Segmenting is kind of like the first step of getting personal with your audience. Each of your groups really deserves their own strategy, their own message. You know, you treat your lapsed donors different than you do your current donors. You treat database acquisitions, brand new prospects differently than you do your major givers and whatnot. So that's one very important thing. The overall message here with segmentation and personalization is that it builds trust and it builds relationship if you relate to your constituents specifically to them with messages that resonate with what they do with you, how they interact with you. So even basic segmentation is good, where you treat your new donors different than returning donors. If you've done a database acquisition, that you treat them differently than you do your people that give regularly. And this is something you have to really keep your finger on the pulse of, because, you know, things change, people change. It's worth reevaluating. Is this the right message for this segment? And it's not difficult. You know, we help folks with this a lot. Segmenting is actually pretty simple to do. It's just a matter of thinking seriously about your donors and, you know, considering who they are, where they're coming from. You could group them by donation frequency, by how they engage, what programs that you offer are they interested in, etc. So segmentation is kind of the first step towards personalization. Next slide. Personalization is where you go one-on-one. Here's the key thing here. Any field in your database, any piece of data that you have, any data point can drive unique features, words, colors in an email or in a print piece. Now, of course, with social media, you can't do one-on-one personalization, at least not yet. But you can with email and print. And this, it's not just mail merge. Mail merge is where you say, Dear Jack, Dear Sally. This is where, for example, let's talk about, some of you probably, if you do direct mail, you have what we call an ask string, where you have suggested levels of giving, you know, the little box that says, I'd like to give $50 or $500 or $1,000. That ask string really should change based on the donor that it's going to. You know, why would you give your $1,000 donor the option to just give 50? So that person's email or reply card, whatever you're using, remittance envelope, would start with the amount that they usually give and work up from there. So these are all ways that you can, I mean, I can go on and on about personalization. Some of you probably have different programs that people give towards different initiatives. Example that comes to mind is outfit God's Pit Crew down in Danville. They do hurricane relief and disaster relief. And when people give to them, they can either just give a general donation, or they can give towards, what's it called, Josh? A blessing bucket?
Something like that.
I think it's a blessing bucket. It's actually literally a bucket full of the essential needs you have when your home has been leveled by a hurricane. And they have other programs like that. So when they do their marketing, people that are giving to giving buckets, those are the images, those are the pictures that populate that email, that print piece. And whereas someone who's given to just the general fund would get different images. And it's just a matter of recognizing what's in your database that is unique to that donor, and then letting that uniqueness drive the message that you are putting out there. And it's got to be accurate. It has to be tasteful. You don't want to get creepy with it, but anything in the database can change anything in the messaging piece, in the email or the print piece. It can be very powerful. It can be as simple as colors changing, pictures changing, messages changing. And this, is executed on the fly. Thousands of pieces per hour being created, being emailed, being printed. And it's not really expensive. It's a little bit more setup, but the actual execution is just the same, as fast as when you're doing something where every message is the same. All right, Josh, you're taking over here, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to load. I don't know. The computer is way slow. Okay. We're going to show you some examples of some folks who have done pretty cool personalization, and some of it, I mean, it's just to get your mind churning a little bit on how, if you think about your database, and what information you have about your donors or your potential donors or your volunteers or board members, there's a lot of really interesting ways to use that data to reach them on a personal level. Oh, sorry. Let's see. The computer's acting up. Okay. So real quickly, just like to summarize what Bill said, I mean, we do this because obviously we want to reach our donors on a personal level. But the facts are the facts. There are more people reaching out to your donors or your potential donors every year. So you've got to kind of cut through the noise sometimes, and that can be done through personalized tactics. Make the person feel like you're reaching them on their level with things that interest them, that things engage them, and leverage your database for that. And if you don't have a super strong database, that's okay. Start now. Start thinking about some practical ways that you can collect data about your donors, or the people in your database, even if they don't give, to try to help build this down the road. And that could be, are they volunteering? Are they showing up to events? Are they responding to a certain type of engagement? Maybe they click on all your emails. And if you know that, let's use that data to your advantage, because maybe when it comes down to soliciting them, you don't spend money on a mailed piece, you solicit them by email. Because they're being asked by more than you. And it's sometimes personalization is what makes the difference. Every nonprofit we talk to, almost every nonprofit tells us that they're having less and less money to spend, but they're asked to do more and more. They're seeing their donors, the number of donors they have, decrease. Some cases, their dollar amounts are staying the same or increasing, but the number of donors are decreasing. So again, that's another reason to think about personalization and segmentation, so that you can just get as personal as you can with your donors, and try to engage them better. So here's some cool examples. Not all of these are nonprofits, but it doesn't matter. I mean, anything in your database, like Bill said, can drive your print piece. So this example is Barter Theater, and what they did is they were inviting people to come see an upcoming show, The Wizard of Oz. What they knew in their database is the last show that all these people came to. And so what we encourage them to do is let's use that data. So let's think about who was in that play and who's going to be in the next play. So they were able to get some photos of the actors, and so this postcard came from the actor, inviting them to come back and see them in The Wizard of Oz. So the one on the left, this actor had played in Singing in the Rain, and they're inviting them to come see them in Wizard of Oz. And the one on the right had played in Shrek, inviting them to come see them in Wizard of Oz. And so we'd print these, and every single one was just a little bit different because it was all tailored by who's getting the postcard and what do we know about them. So that's it's way beyond just using like a mail merge and merging in someone's name. You can flip out images and things like that to just make your pieces as personal as possible. Barter loved this campaign. They actually got some really good feedback from one of their donors, even, who said it was one of the best pieces they'd ever received. It was compelling, and I think they must have been a little bit more in the loop in terms of print because they wanted to know how it was done. So sometimes, people want to know, how's this made? It's pretty cool. If you want to ever come by the shop, we would show you the technology we use, because it's pretty neat. And if you're a nerd like me, it's super neat, but, you may not care how it's done, and that's fine. Just know that we can do it. This one's busy, but if you think about splitting this screen down the middle, there's a mailed piece on the left and a mailed piece on the right. It basically gets folded. So we're showing you the front and back of it, and it gets folded, tri-folded. But this was a university trying to recruit students, and what do they do here, Bill? This was one that you worked on.
Yeah, the message, this is a potential student. The first guy, what's the name? Tamia Hill up there, upper left. You see the mail panel. Tamia is actually expressed an interest in the discipline, in the department that this Michelle Algamdi graduated in back in 2018. So they have a recent graduate actually reaching out to the prospective student, the recent graduate in the field that the prospective student is interested in. Same thing with the next one. This Anya girl is interested in the same program, the same department that Michaela graduated from in 2019. So it was just a way to get personal and to be touched by someone their similar age. Now, the next slide, Clemson flipped it around, and they had, this is actually an appeal mailing where, let's look at the one on the right first. This Kendra girl right there is in the program, in the department that this donor, David, graduated from himself years ago. He's an alum of Clemson in the program, and Kendra in the same program is reaching out to him to give money. The one on the left is not just a student reaching out, but the dude with his folded hands, that's a professor that Paige had when she graduated, when she was at school several years ago, graduating from the same program. So they used it as an alumni appeal being reached out to by students who are in the same program that they graduated from. Tremendously successful.
This one's another higher ed. This is when you give a graphic designer who knows what they're doing the flexibility of flipping out images and text. So in this case, they're recruiting students I think it was 8 different segments they used. So they took their list and they basically, so this was a case where they didn't necessarily have the data in their database, but they used data they had to kind of decide, all right, which segment will these people fall into so that we can put the most meaningful image in front of them. So they knew that the people on the postcard on the left were interested in nursing. They knew the people on the right weren't interested in nursing, but they were interested in healthcare of some sort. So then they flipped out not only the picture, but also we put their name on the name tag or their name on the patch, and that flipped out on the fly too. That's one of the coolest pieces from last year that we had the opportunity to work on. And we also varied data in the bullet points too, because if they were from the state of Virginia, which none of these examples are from, but they got an extra bullet point about a specific grant that Virginia students can get. So there's just so much you can do with just, again, whether it exists in your database or not, or you just sit down and thoughtfully think about your database and what segments these people might fit into. Just a very imagery. If nothing else, some of our clients, they do it for testing, A/B testing. I might put a message on this piece and not on this piece, and let's just see what happens. So as you're thinking ahead, if you're just lost for ideas, and I mean, we'll be happy to help you any way we can, but it might just boil down to age demographics and things like that, and I'll get into that in a minute. It doesn't have to be just like obviously nonprofits aren't going to usually appeal to somebody with a postcard. A lot of times it's in an envelope because envelopes get better open response rates. If somebody gets something in the envelope, they're more likely to read it than they are your postcard that might just find its way in the trash. Nothing against postcards. Postcards work, but the envelope increases response rate. And then also the larger the envelope, the better the response rate. So this one is not a number 10. That's going to generally get a better open rate than your regular old number 10 envelope. Ways to also improve your open rate would be to use the front of the postcard. It doesn't have to be boring, just a return in the corner, a stamp in the other corner, and address. You can put full color images on the front, like New Hope Girls did, and they do this on all of their mailings. They put full color images, and it's tied to the mail piece that's on the inside. So there's this kind of continuity between the envelope and the appeal or whatever they're doing on the inside of the envelope. You can take it a step further, even on the envelope. So, Bluefield and Radford Higher Ed, they're all about variable data because they're oftentimes, for it'd be equivalent to you guys trying to attract a list you purchased. They may not have heard of you, and they're probably being solicited to by a bunch of nonprofits. So you got to do something different than everybody else because there's a lot of competition in the recruitment world. So in this case, what Bluefield did is they varied the name on the front. They had each student got a letter from someone in the department that they were interested in. It's kind of like Radford did. So James was a student. In this case, I guess they're asking for money. So they're asking Mr. Sherman to give. Let's just say he was in the business department. James is a student in the business department. So when he opens this up, this letter's from James. And that's going to vary on the fly depending on who is getting the letter. Radford did something super duper cool. They found pictures from the yearbook and varied those out based on who's getting it. So that's extreme level of personalization, but just the sky's the limit, really. But don't be scared off by that because not everybody has a higher ed like database. So let's talk about some practical ways that we can do this. Okay. Over here so I can get my notes pulled up. Okay. So not every nonprofit collects event attendance data, but if you do, if you don't, think about doing it. If somebody comes and volunteers for you or with you over the weekend, let's just forget about attendance. If they're a board member, a former advisory council member, any kind of thing they do to help support your mission beyond just giving, think about recording that data because that gives you data points in your appeal mailings. If they attended an event, maybe you highlight a moment from the event they last attended. It could be a blurb in the corner that the speaker at the event, you kind of quote them, just remind them about their connection to you and what you're doing and what they were part of. If you don't have that, that's okay, but just some things to think about down the road as you're building a really strong database, because what it's really going to boil down to, in our opinion, is it's really good data drives really good personalization. And just like you guys have heard this, I'm sure, but you're only as good as your data. You don't have to go out and invest in Salesforce or anything super fancy, but use whatever system you're using to build as many data points as you can. But think about it ahead of time, because some organizations just go collect all kinds of data and never use it. So think about what makes sense for you and just start recording it. And then we can get into how we might use it to personalize your pieces. One of the easier ones is giving habits and patterns. So, most of the time we will at least know whether the person you're asking is a giver, a non-giver, a purchase name, or a major giver. And then you think about how you're going to ask them. So if they're a regular giver, think about recurring gift opportunities. Maybe you draw attention to the idea of a recurring gift, so you don't have to ask them every year. That might be something you do for a regular giver versus a lapsed giver. You might remind them of the last time they were generous, what impact that gift made, those sort of things. Milestones are pretty cool. This isn't necessarily end of year related. This is more just an ongoing kind of donor relation idea. Is if you know the first time they made a gift, tell them thank you every year. This is the anniversary of your first gift. This is what your first gift did. It doesn't have to be a letter, it could be an email, but it's just another way to kind of keep engaging people thoughtfully and personally. Recognition for their giving. If you have giving levels, a lot of people will leverage that. So, you will remind them that they're in the silver level, and then you'll go ahead and pre-populate what it's going to take to get to the gold level. And maybe you're going to change the stationery out. Maybe the letter has a different, heading at the top, or a border that's a little bit different. And just, if you do have giving levels, you could leverage those in your mail pieces to make it a little bit more personal to them. Social media engagement and history, or email. If you have like an integrated CRM, some people are able to tell, like, of everybody in my database, here's who's clicking on my emails. Here's who's opening my emails, which we assume means they read them. So if you think about that, that might help drive the personalization of your appeal. So what we might suggest is, all right, if you know that they are email people, they open your emails, they read them, they might even reply to you, then don't solicit them through the mail, solicit them through email, because that's probably their preferred, communication method. Nothing wrong with doing both, but we know that most people are trying to spend what little bit of budget they have wisely. So there are ways to be personal and thoughtful in terms of just knowing what you know about them. QR codes. So, you know, you guys might be tired of QR codes, but believe it or not, they're like still super popular. We obviously got used to them during COVID, and they stuck around, and now people are sort of familiar enough to not get scared to scan them. Older generation still somewhat worried that they're going to get a virus or something like that, but for the most part, people do use QR codes. So what we've started doing is, when we do a mail piece, almost everyone, whether you're a nonprofit or not, includes a QR code that's tied to your call to action. So what we've been doing is personalizing that. And so what that means is, if you have 200 or 5,000 mail pieces, we'll put a different QR code on every piece that will let us know, or let you know, who scans it. So if Bill scans it, then we'll show you a dashboard on who all's engaging in your mail pieces, so that you might leverage that data to personalize your interaction with Bill. So Bill scanned my QR code on my mail piece or my appeal, then I'm going to note that in my CRM, or I'm going to immediately call Bill, and I'm going to just, call him, and because he's now raised his hand in a subtle way that he might be interested in your mission, what you're asking, what you're telling him, if it's like a newsletter or a annual report or something like that. So personalized QR codes are super helpful. Just to help you kind of elevate donors where they need to be elevated, or elevate your audience so you know who's engaging with your pieces. It also helps you kind of tell the story back to your board and people like that, like what's going on with this mail, okay, well, I know that 10 people scanned it, and I know who they are. Um, so those are helpful tools that you can use.
Hey,
Um,
Josh,
yeah.
what kind of data do you need to personalize the QR code?
All we need is your date. It's just your mail list. So what we'll do is when we process the mail to for the post office, we take there's a unique number that goes with each row, and we just use that unique number to make a unique code so that when somebody scans behind the scenes, the system's kind of tying that unique code, which is tied to the name, to the scan. So then we can tell you who it is scanning. Because they're the only person that would see that particular QR code.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's
Oh,
it's cool. If you know, higher ed, they're all about speed to lead. So for them, it's like as soon as they scan, we want to know, because that means I'm gonna call or text them. Nonprofit, to me, if it were me, I would be using that to flag them in my database, put them on a separate journey, something like that, just because they are more engaged than the other 4,900 people you mail to. Um, um,
Yeah, the QR
okay.
code thing is a way of, if you have a larger database, like you're mailing to 5,000, 10,000 people, some of those people are going to immediately follow your call to action and donate. They're going to go to your website, click the QR code, whatever, go to the website and give you money or write a check, mail it back. A whole bunch of them aren't going to respond at all, unfortunately. But there's a middle group that raise their hand in some way. They scan the QR code, which takes them to your website, to your donate page, but they don't do anything. This is where it's helpful to know who they were, because now you've identified the people that did not complete the donation, but they did something. So if you have any kind of personal follow-up, phone call, note card, whatever, those are the ones you target, because you know that they at least were interested enough to scan. It
gotcha.
helps you focus your follow-up efforts.
Yeah, it used to be like a tear off coupon, right, on the mail. That's how you knew that somebody actually looked at your mail. Well, QR code's kind of like a new way of doing that. You can there's not too many ways to attribute mail to the conversion process, but a QR code is one way to do that. Um, Pre-populating the response device, this increases your chances of a donation. If when you send your appeal and you include your little response piece, go ahead and prefill it with their name. A lot of nonprofits are smart about putting at the bottom just subtle their donor ID, and the appeal number, so that way when believe you guys have probably experienced this. Some donors don't just mail back right away. 2 years later, you get this random gift, and it's because it's been sitting in their office or on their kitchen table for all that time, and they pull it out and decide to give you a gift after they read your annual report, and they don't use the appeal letter from the annual report. They use the one they saved for 2 years ago. And so you're like, wait a minute, what's this all about? So if you tag in the bottom of it, just subtle way of knowing what are they responding to, that helps you build a strong database so that you'll kind of know what their habits are. But then beyond that, just pre-filling the suggested gift amount. So what we'll do a lot of times is we'll take the database and we'll look at, have the customer provide us their last gift, and we come up with some kind of formula that suggests a next gift amount. And then we'll go ahead and pre-populate that. We'll give them other options above that, but the starting gift would be whatever that pre-populated amount is, and that'll go ahead and be on their reply device, so that way it helps kind of answer the questions for them. It suggests an amount. I know a lot of people do that on their online giving pages where you choose what option they have, and it's always a little bit of bump up above what you would accept. It's the same thing, except it's varied based on each donor or potential donor. The last way that I think it's practical for a small nonprofit is just personalize your follow-up. So anybody can do that. And that doesn't even have to be with mail. It could be email, it could be a phone call. But if they give to you, respond to them. Some people just do the old generic giving receipts. Do a little bit more than that. If you have the manpower, call and thank them. If you don't, think about an email. If you can automate it, that much better. But just personalize it, because again, donor retention is a big issue, and you're going to have to do a little bit more to help retain your donors, because there's a lot of noise out there, a lot of competition. So it's to us, it's all about being as personal as you can. All right, so let's talk about omni-channel fundraising. So here's the idea. This is what we've started to work more on with not just our nonprofit clients, but higher ed for sure. Just regular old sales. We work with a guy who's selling airplanes, small businesses, and promoting events through the mail, telecommunications. We're starting to see a lot of people get into omni-channel methods, and it's not, I think sometimes we've been used to this as a society. So, you've already seen where you go and you visit Amazon, you're clicking around, and all of a sudden on your Facebook page, you're getting an ad about the general category that you were surfing on Amazon. So the whole idea there is that they're trying to personalize their advertising to meet you where you are. So they know what you're interested in. So while you might find it intrusive, the marketing company thinks they're helping you. So we got to think that way in the fundraising world too, and it's possible. So what we've started doing now is when we mail, we're engaging other platforms as well, other avenues. So we might target messaging to their Facebook, their Instagram, YouTube, and all that looks and feels the same as the appeal letter or the postcard, because it's the same idea. If you don't know what channel your donors or potential donors prefer, then oftentimes you just want to use all the channels, and then you want to meet them where they prefer to engage the most. And that might not be mail, it might not be email, it might not be social. It's going to be one of those ways, unless they're just not interested in you at that time. But you certainly don't want to leave anything on the table. So omni-channel basically is the idea is that you're using multiple platforms, you're keeping your message consistent, and you're meeting people where they are, and you're doing it multiple times to help influence how much engagement you get. So just to give you a basic idea of what this might look like, usually what happens is if you just did just a regular postcard campaign, and that's it, or let's say you did a regular appeal and it was in an envelope. If they open that up, that's one impression, right? They've seen it one time, maybe more than once if they look at it a bunch of times, but let's just say it's one on average, because some people don't even open it. What we're trying to do is help folks get more than one impressions. So what we've found is that we can get 8 to 16 impressions if we use other avenues to engage your list. So one area is like, we call it social match. Basically, if you have a mail list, what we'll do is make a custom audience on Facebook or Meta and try to target ads to anybody we can find a match from your mailing list, so that when they're getting your appeal letter, they're also getting ads on their Instagram and Facebook account that looks and feels just like that mail piece. Now, it won't be personal, it won't reference their last gift, because I don't know that we can do that. That would be cool, maybe one day. but it'll at least look and feel like that mail piece. And the whole idea is that when they see the mail piece, they're gonna be like, oh, wow, okay, and it all starts kind of connecting the dots because you don't know often what their preferred method of engagement is. So we're trying to cover as many grounds as we can. We always mail track, so we'll let you know when things are getting delivered because you might time your own email campaign to that. Your QR codes we talked about, we're doing that on almost every piece now, not just a regular static QR code, but a personalized one. Informed delivery. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that or not, but the post office has an informed delivery program that's free to sign up for. And basically it just allows you to see what mail is going to be in your mailbox that day. But for a nonprofit or a marketer, what it allows you to do is put an advertisement that goes along with that mail piece. And it's like a little clickable ad that goes to their email inbox. It's very targeted. And they will collect data too to tell you who's scanning, who's clicking that, who's opening that email. And that's another way to kind of bring attribution to your campaign to know who's doing what. So we'll do that. We'll do call and text tracking for some people that are interested. And what that looks like is if your postcard says call or text, 1-800-WordSprint, call or text give to 1-800-WordSprint, then if they call that number, then we'll track it and let you know who's calling, and tie that back to your mail list. And if they text that number, then we'll automate a response that says, thank you for checking in. Here's a link to give. Thank you so much. Whatever. When they do that, then that gives you attribution on who's engaging with that piece. And it drives them to your website, which is the ultimate goal, is to get them to wherever they need to get to accomplish that call to action. The two follow-ups here, basically most of y'all might be familiar with remarketing. So all we do there is we put code on your website that allows us to remarket website visitors with those Facebook ads and also Google display ads, the ones that are horizontal or landscape that you see when you're surfing the web, kind of on the web browser. We'll do those ads too. So anybody who visits your page, even if they aren't on your mailing list, we'll still serve them the ads we'll do all this for 30 days to help drive more engagement with your campaign. And then we'll also kind of check out who's visiting your website to see if we can find their address, then we'll consider that a match. So they might visit your website, and if their address, if we can find out what their address is based on using their location data, and if it matches a record on your database, on your mail list, then we'll let you know that so that you can say, okay, here's this holistic view of what happened with my campaign. I know this many people saw my digital ads, this many people scanned my code, this many people called me, and you start to build this story that helps you determine what you're going to do next time. And it also helps elevate certain people on your list to get extra engagement. If you know who they are and they're interacting with your marketing or your nonprofit appeals, then you can leverage that. So it definitely drives more people to interact with your message. Actually, I already covered this. My bad. I didn't realize I had visuals here, but sorry. But in a general sense, this is what it looks like. This postcard arrives. At that time, they're getting an email from the post office. They're getting obviously the physical mail piece with the QR code on it. They might get a phone number to call. Some people don't do phone numbers. They just say, go to my website. That's fine. At the same time, they're starting to get these ads. So the social media ads, these display ads on the Google Display Network on random websites they visit. And then they're getting the customer's getting a dashboard to kind of monitor how all that's going. So sorry, I didn't know we had those visuals there. I think we had some questions that were sent ahead of time, but I thought maybe we'll pause because we covered a lot of stuff and see if anybody had questions that came up from our presentation or comments or feedback.
Josh, can we show folks what a dashboard looks like so people get an idea of what type of engagement you can see from your donors and potential donors?
Yes.
Blue Ridge Land Conservancy said we could use theirs.
Okay.
They're a small nonprofit.
All right. You have to let me know if you can see this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had a pretty small mailing list. This went to I think lapsed donors, and they were doing some A/B testing here to they varied some messaging within the letter to see who responded. And they did an omni-channel campaign. So what they did was they sent the letter. They also did digital ads that went with the letter to the same audience. And then they were able to get a ton of impressions, but part of that's because what we did for them, they were not, they were okay with getting people outside their list to see this appeal. So we did some lookalike audiences and things like that to help drive people to their website to hopefully give them new donors too. So I'll just go quickly because it's 10 minutes till. So they had a list of 1,100 people, and about half of them we were able to find their social media accounts. And they were getting some ads displayed. This ran for 30 days, and a handful of people clicked on the ads. That's pretty typical for your targeted list. And when we go outside the list, obviously you'll see a lot more engagement than just to your 668 people. Because you got to remember on Facebook, they're seeing ads like every other thing on their news feed is an ad. That's just a really small picture of what the ad looks like. And then with Facebook, there's ad copy that goes with that too. But you can't see that there. They were able to see how many mail pieces got delivered, and almost everybody got a mail piece. It was a small list, so pretty targeted. They were able to see who scanned their QR codes. So here's the example of, you can see the overall data. You had 12 scans, but what you should be interested in really are who scanned. So this tells them who's scanning this QR code, because what they should do and could do is go back to their database and maybe contact these people or see if they converted to a gift. And if they didn't, then that gives you a follow-up. Informed delivery, we're telling them how many emails were sent, how many emails were open, and in their case, nobody clicked on the informed delivery ad that went with that mail piece. I don't think anybody called them either. I think it was just me testing it here. But it would tell you if somebody called the number that was on the mail piece or texted, you would see who they are here, just like this. These next two are follow-ups. So these are all people who visited their page and got served ads. So this is where we got pretty aggressive. If somebody visited their page, we served ads for 30 days. This is where we got the most action. We're trying to remarket to people in this case. It's split up because one of these were lookalike audiences at the top, and the second one were straight website visitors. So over 30-day period, they had 370 visitors. We sent 33,000 ads, and 8 of those visitors came back. Now you can't tell who they are, but you know overall that they were coming back, and then these are what the ads look like. And then same thing on social media. same thing. They visited their website. We followed them, found out what their social media account was, or Facebook does that, not us. And then we served them ads to try to get them to come back. So 32 people did that. And then the last piece were lead match. So what this means is that 143 people over 30 days, more than that many people came to their website, but 143 people we were able to determine their address. And then of those people, 3 of those addresses showed up on their list. So we know that they visited their website, and we attribute that to the mail piece and the overall campaign because it happened during that 30-day period. They have the option of purchasing these other leads. If they wanted to get the addresses of everybody else who visited their website, they can, and they could add them maybe to their database for future mailings. But that's an option they have. But what's more important is, who matched back to the list. All right. I don't want to keep talking because we don't have a ton of time left to answer questions, Bill.
Other questions that you asked earlier that we haven't answered?
I can go down the list of the ones that were sent in and we can get through some.
I mean, I'll add in if you guys are seeing any particular trends. Last year, I think I mentioned in my response and question that last year we had little success with our mail piece, much less than we'd had in previous years. And I know we don't want to necessarily take one year as, the end all be all, but I'm wondering if you're seeing any trends in giving over the last couple of years that you might share with us.
Yes. You want to answer that, Josh, or you want me to?
You can start and I can add libs.
Yeah, if you call up that data we have. Yes, the 2 things that kind of fought against giving in the last couple of years. One, initially there was during COVID, donors generally stepped up. Our clients, at least, were reporting that people did what they had to do. They were generous. It was, we all came together. It was actually, my dad used to have a saying, never waste a general catastrophe because it can really help you. So we saw that, and there was a post-COVID fatigue that a number of our clients noticed. The other is inflation, that just tightening. 2023 was generally slightly down for most of our clients, most of our nonprofit clients. And most of the studies we've read on it say it has to do with just the inflation that hit post-COVID. So yeah, that's not unusual. If you had a little dip in 2023, you're not alone.
Yeah.
What were some other questions, Josh?
As far as trends go, I think over nonprofit as a whole, I think there's a concern about donor retention. There is a trend of, there's this kind of this mark in the sand that says, all right, if you're 55 years and older, you respond more to a mailed piece. If you're under 55, you respond more to digital or email. But then at the same time, we know that people are getting a whole lot more emails than they are mail. So, it's that's why we think that, kind of this omni-channel approach, being more thoughtful to your database is what we should be doing. So, we are not going to sell mail just because we do mail. We want you to be successful. So that's why we kind of think about backing up a little bit, looking at the database, because some of your donors are going to respond more to email. And if you don't know their giving habits, they don't have a habit built, then it could be just as simple as saying, if they're this age and below, we're going to try email. If they're this age and above, then we're going to do mail. But we would also encourage you to think about, even for the mail, to think about an omni-channel approach, because you might find what their habits are in the process if you're kind of covering all the bases. But yeah, I mean, a lot of conversations start with, man, like, we can't afford to do mail. And we're like, that's true. You can't mail to everybody on your database. So let's think about how to, like, let's look at the database and do some of the legwork ahead of time to see how we can be thoughtful, because we don't want to do a spaghetti on the wall approach and see what happens. We respect everybody and their mission more than that. So try to think about it through different lenses, really. There was a question about Giving Day, like standing out. I think we covered a lot of that. D- I used to love matches, those are good ways to acquire donors, um, and leverage somebody who's already being generous. And we talked about some of the other things like being personal, using multiple channels. There are people who ask us sometimes, like, should Giving Day be my fall appeal? My end of year appeal. And we're a little leery of that because there's only so much. If you put it all your eggs in one basket, then there's a risk there, because not everybody's going to respond to Giving Day. There's a ton of noise there. So we wouldn't recommend that. That's like your only strategy is Giving Day. You might use Giving Day to kind of launch your end of year campaign. You might use Giving Day. Some people have used Giving Day and kind of did a mail piece that leverages Giving Day, but just to be careful not to make people feel like if they can't give early, so you're like, we can count your gift towards the Giving Day goal or something like that as like an offline gift, but still leverage the day and the energy that goes around it, so that you don't leave anybody out.
There's also data that, suggests that, or actually shows that the larger donations are usually not on Giving Days. I mean, as a general pattern, your larger gifts will come in from a traditional appeal or a in-person call or that type of thing. That Giving Day tends to be lots more, but smaller amounts. That's just a general overall average. That's one reason not to rely completely on it. You might miss some major gifts. But it all comes back to the best understanding you have of your donors, of the people that are the actual human beings on that database. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Bill, so much. That was really helpful. I took a bunch of notes. We'll be in touch from the foundation, of course, about our end of year appeal, and hopefully others will too, but really appreciate your time and energy today. And thank you all for being on. We will post this on our website as a recording, so feel free to go back and revisit pieces of this, and of course, reach out to Bill and Josh with questions as well. And then we will see everybody hopefully next month, where we'll be talking about board engagement. So again, thank you everybody so much. Yeah, Bill.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Bill.
Let me just mention one thing. We are doing a webinar on Tuesday. You guys have third Thursday. We have third Tuesday. It's at 2:00, I think, in the afternoon. And this particular one is about branding and rebranding. So if anyone has that vaguely on their agenda or want to know the steps that you need to go through when you do that kind of stuff, this webinar is for you. So I think, Jessica, it's okay if I send an email to everyone on the list here?
Sure. Yeah, that'll be
Please do. Please do.
With a link for that, just in case you want to eavesdrop in.
Yeah, that would be great, Bill. Thank you so much.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us today. Hope everybody's day goes well. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.